Gov says the state of the state is strong. Let's see what the speaker says.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Really important to kind of take some notes on what some would say by statute review, the most powerful person in the state, not necessarily the governor, but the Speaker of the House. That is not necessarily because of who he is, but because of what he does. So it's a great time to talk to Joe Shekarchi about things, but it's not just about the state of the state tonight. He's had a clearing from the State Ethics Commission for what I think was one of the most foolhardy investigations I've seen in a long time, but I'll let him spout because he's still revved up about that. There's some contention within the General Assembly about how to voice its opinion on things going on in the Middle East, and we'll see what his priorities are. In the meantime, the governor had what most folks are reviewing as his best presentation so far. Here's Kim's wrap up on that.
In a roughly 45-minute address, Governor Dan McKee says the state of Rhode Island is strong, but the work isn't done.
We all want a Rhode Island that's better for our kids, for our grandkids.
One of his top priorities continues to be education, ensuring more kids are in the classroom more often and getting Rhode Island students in line with their peers in Massachusetts by the year 2030.
That's why my budget will propose $15 million for math and English language arts coaching for students and professional development for teachers to help us meet the goal ahead of us.
He also wants to get Rhode Islanders' income more on par with the Bay State.
We're going to set a goal to raise per capita income by a minimum of $20,000 by the year 2030.
He did not get into specifics about how, saying it's a plan his administration will roll out over the next 100 days. In a non-policy moment, the governor acknowledged the frustration caused by the abrupt closure of the Washington Bridge.
So I want to once again thank Rhode Islanders for their patience and understanding,
promising the bridge would be reopened as quickly as possible. He also honed in on reducing red tape for small businesses.
One of my top priorities is making Rhode Island a better place to do business.
Proposing a reduction of the corporate minimum tax, eliminating fees, and helping minority and women-owned businesses qualify for state contracts. On the healthcare front, the governor will create a new working group to look at the state's healthcare delivery system. And on housing, he's calling for a $100 million production bond that voters will get the final say on.
Yeah, a lot to it. Happy New Year, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Overall take.
On the governor's speech, that was a good speech. It's a good speech. I thought he hit the themes that mattered most to Rhode Islanders. I think it was a realistic speech. I think that he, understands the fiscal reality we're in. There is no more federal aid, and we will unpack it as the speech was good, but we technically don't have the budget. We're filming on Thursday. The budget should be submitted today, and then it'll be introduced. It'll go online shortly thereafter. Then begins the review process.
I'm glad to know that the Speaker understands that at least once a show I explain that we tape on Thursdays to be seen on Friday and Sunday. So you're on your game today. Way to go.
I try to be, because look at the host I have.
You told me in a quickie radio interview after the State of the State that you had a pretty good understanding of what was going to be in it based on your preview,
yes.
your briefing with the governor's office. He wouldn't, I think, put in much that didn't at least have some tacit, okay type of room for discussion type of disposition from both you and the Senate President. Agreed?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's true of any governor, and it's certainly true of Governor McKee and myself. This is the third budget we've done together. We're going into the fourth one. I did one previous with Governor Raimondo. It was kind of left over when I became acting speaker. We had to do a budget before Christmas that year. It was a little unusual. So this is my 5th budget in 4 years, and I would say he's been very consistent with you know, how he's presented it, and we've got along well, and we work collaboratively with the Senate President and the governor.
I always get a kick over the reporting and actually elected officials' assertion that the work is never done. Well, of course the work is never done. If the work was done, you know, lights out.
Go home, go on vacation.
The earth disappears.
But what the point that I was making, I said that you may be referring to me on opening day, is that the people think that just because the General Assembly stops in June and we don't have formal session, that like it's done and we'll go away and that's it. We had study commissions. I was working on LIBOR. I know that's an issue you probably want to talk about today. But we've worked on a lot of other issues. There were actually 12 commissions that met all year round, full of very talented, bright people who volunteer for the state. And these are the experts in land use, in school safety, in trauma, in environmental and bottle bill. A lot of people spend a lot of time working without any compensation all year, and that's where we get a lot of good ideas for a lot of the legislation we pass.
All right, well, I have questions about the governor's priorities, but since you mentioned LIBOR, the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, which has been on the table and kicked around for a handful of years now, it's really about what people consider to be informally the blue wall of protection that exists around police officers when it comes to their disciplinary issues. The Chiefs of Police, the association here in Rhode Island, has now been 3 years in support of wanting to make some changes, give some more managerial oomph to what chiefs can do. The citizens are looking for a little bit more input. The police unions, I think, have acquiesced to the idea that something has got to be done. And you had some drafts that just couldn't meet the moment in the last legislative session. I roughed you up a little bit thinking that I wanted you to prioritize that, and I was disappointed that you didn't. 10 seconds of what happened last session and more on what's going to happen this session.
Well, 10 seconds last year, the Senate worked very hard on the bill. We all did, but the Senate had a study commission that they could rely on. We didn't have one. They had a study commission. They came up with a product at literally the last hour or two of session, and they passed it. It was a very strong vote. It was like, I think, 2 negative votes against the bill, and it came over to us. But we didn't have ample opportunity to vet what came over. We didn't have ample opportunity to have hearings on it. And I'm not the kind of person who would pass a major piece of legislation like that against the wishes of my membership without having hearings and public hearings on a bill.
Do you feel that there is a consensus that a new way of doing business has got to be achieved there?
Yes.
Do you have a specific feeling about what you want to see in that legislation?
I think just the things that you talked about, more police accountability for actions. I also think that you have to give management and the chiefs and the seasoned towns a little bit more say in it. But I think that a reform is a better way. I think what the Senate did, and I congratulate the Senate, was a very good product. Ours is going to differ only slightly from that, not too drastic from that. There may be a little bit of a difference in interactions between the public and the department, so the police may be able to have a different set of criteria being reviewed when it's interaction with the public.
The people have very little input in the process. Right now there's a 3-person review board on these disciplinary hearings, and they all come from law enforcement. The prosecuting agency, meaning the city, gets one, the defendant, meaning the police officer, gets one, and then they decide and they argue who gets to be the 3rd vote. And all due respect to police officers who want to police their own industry, that is the feeling that is the reality that creates a feeling as if it's a very internal operation. Do you support expanding from 3 to at least 5 and including some level of citizen review in that?
Yeah, I think this is a quasi-judicial process, and I think it's important, yes, to answer your question is yes. Do I support expanding it? Yes. Do I support bringing more people, non-law enforcement, into the process? Yes. I think a good place to go for that is somewhere in the judiciary, either a retired judge or somebody appointed by the Chief Justice. We're working on all those details, but I think that we need citizen participation on that board, we need judicial participation, and we need law enforcement participation.
Timing?
I think before the break of February 13th or 14th, you'll see a House version of the bill. I think the Senate reintroduced the same version last week, so you could see one as early as next week or the week after.
Priorities in terms of spending, you are not flush like 49 other states have been with COVID money. People can argue about the economic decisions by the last administration coming into this administration and flooding the economy with federal dough. I would suggest that it was game-saving in many ways, but with it comes a lot of inefficiencies. You still have somewhat $80, $90 million worth of dough that you haven't laid out yet, but you're not going to get any more.
That's correct.
So it's back to the, lack of a better term, old days, right?
Well, I learned to live within our budget, like everyone else, like you do, like people in the studio do, small businesses do in Rhode Island, everybody else.
Concerned about some things. Most of what was used for COVID money was one time for one time.
That's correct. It was not easy to do that, though. I point out that took a lot of discipline.
Well, everybody was hungry at the table.
I know
it was like
that.
there was extras all over the place, right?
It was discipline done correctly by the governor, myself, the Senate president, working together. But it wasn't easy, but we made strategic investments, and that's why I think the state's in a relatively good shape. 195
was mentioned in the package. The governor talked about his thanks for patience. There's been a lot of calls for oversight. I've seen some good work done by oversight in the legislature, and I've seen some shenanigans that make me embarrassed to be a citizen. What's your take on what ought to happen and when on 195?
Soon. I think House Oversight will meet. I'm just trying to work out some of the details to see. I'm going to invite the Senate if they'd like to join us or do their own oversight. But I think you'll see good work.
It would be appropriate, don't you think, for joint oversight to make it more comprehensive, not go through the redundancies and try to get right down to the brass tacks?
I think, you can make that argument, but also you can make an argument it might be a good thing to have two oversights. One now and one maybe a month from now. So you can kind of see a progress
flip
report.
with the Senate president as to who goes first?
We discuss it and we talk about it like adults, and we'll come to a consensus.
Do you have input into how the interrogation goes?
No, I leave that to my chairwoman, and if she has policy people, but Pat Serpa from
Well, she's
Westmore,
already embarrassed herself with some of the things that she said about the crisis in the middle of it. That's why I worry. There's no doubt that Republicans will decide that they're going to stand on their heads and ask a bunch of silly questions, because that's what they do. But your chairwoman is already, I think, extended herself to a point of prejudice in this thing.
I respectfully disagree. I think Chairwoman always comports herself with professionalism, and she will.
Show you the quotes.
We may have a difference of opinion, but I can assure you that when that hearing starts and we're in a formal hearing process, Pat Serpa runs a very tight ship, and she'll do a very good job, and she has my full faith and confidence.
All right, when we come back, there was an Ethics Commission investigation into the Speaker of the House. He's got some things to say about it. Next.
Tonight, I'm here to cheer on our home team and share our game plan for Rhode Island's future. I have never been more confident. The state of our state is strong and getting stronger every single day because of the team that's doing the work in all 39 cities and towns.
Kind of that was the theme from the governor, aside from some of the details, all of which will be day-to-day news cycle matters. Did you appreciate that theme?
Yes.
Because?
Because I think it's the spirit and intent of what the reality is, that we work together collaboratively. And that hasn't always been the past with the Speaker and a governor and a Senate president, but we all recognize what's good for Rhode Island, and we all want to get there. We may have different ways of getting there. But the governor's a decent person, the Senate president a decent person. I like to think I'm a decent person, and three decent people can work together.
I don't think there's any question you're a decent person, I've known you to be somebody of strong moral fiber, so it's got to go up your wazoo sideways that you had to defend a state ethics commission investigation for a 9-month period of time. Look, I haven't turned into a complete pillow here. If I thought that you'd screwed up, I'd tell you.
You would be all over me more than anyone else.
But the Republican complaint against you for your levied last year for lawyering
alleged client 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason.
But we should outline what the case was before we tell everybody what why you thought it was so ridiculous. So there was this legislation that had to do with specificity of where you could do weddings on what kind of land, and there's one guy down South County who I guess is professes to be a friend and a friend of yours who got mixed up in this whole thing. Anyway. Long story short, the allegation is that you voted yes on a bill that would have given him a benefit. By the way, the bill never passed.
No.
But that you acted. I mean, talk about reaching into the bin, trying to find something to nail the Speaker. when I saw it on its face, I laughed at it. I was kind of surprised actually that the Ethics Commission took it, but because you are the speaker,
That's correct.
you can't kick it.
I understand
And they
that.
issued an 18-page report to vet it, which I also thought was over the top, but maybe necessary. Your take? By the way, levied by the state Republican Party. That's the important part.
I agree with you that it was, basically a baseless complaint. I just want to unpack it a little bit for you and go back. This was made, first of all, they have been, the Republican leadership, Joe Powers, Steve Frias, Hugh Shekarchi, have been running around the state, putting in Freedom of Information requests in many cities and towns, thinking that part of the housing package and land use legislation that somehow benefited me personally or my clients. They've been doing this for over a year. They came back they found something that allegedly happened 6 years ago that you point out that never happened, and it was very, very pedestrian and minor, even if it did happen. It didn't happen, and the Ethics Commission made it very clear it didn't happen. But
meaning if you had voted for a law that might have benefited one of your clients, the ethics ruling in the foundation for evaluating good, bad, or ugly in this is if the law had a overall effect on either the industry or the economy, or it would have not been in the conflict of interest category.
So first of all, let me just say this about the Ethics Commission.
Like he was dead on arrival.
It was dead on arrival because it was not true. They were inventing facts. And if you read the actual allegation against me, and what was so telling or compelling for me was when the violation was filed against me, simultaneously the Republican Party put out a press release. And I don't know if the press picked it up or not, but they put out a press release and said, called on the governor, called on the Senate president, say don't pass any of the House Shekarchi land use package because he's under an ethics investigation. Even though they were the ones who 5 minutes earlier filed the ethics investigation. It was just a blatant political thing. And let me tell you why it's so bad. And we'll talk about me in a minute and the effects and the cost on me and 8 months and the in-depth review they did. But it's bad for Rhode Island. It's bad for Rhode Island when these complaints are filed. It wastes a lot of time and money by the Ethics Commission. They're very professional people. They did a very good job, but it requires a lot of resources. They had investigators and they had lawyers investigating me for the last 8 months. And I do a lot of municipal work, zoning board, planning work. They went to all 39 cities and towns. There was a lot of effort put in, but I'm glad it was done. I'm glad I was cleared completely. I was never any doubt on this, but what made this particularly difficult for me was I had a fire in my office 2 years ago and I lost all my files. So I had to go, in essence, prove my innocence. I had to go and collect information and say, no, that's not true. It didn't happen. I had to go visit West Warwick. I had to go visit East Greenwich. I had to go visit different communities because there were inquiries made legitimate inquiries by the Ethics Commission. Tell us about what you did in this community. And I said, I never did that particular work. And then I had to stop. And I said, well, let me make sure. And I had to go research it. But what it does, this is the bad effect about this. I travel, as you know, to a lot of public events. I go to Rotaries, I go to Chamber of Commerce events, and I try to encourage the business community to get involved because Rhode Island is always in the lower end of the rankings. And I encourage business people. I said, if you want to change the rankings, you need to be involved. You need to run for office. And when this ethics complaint was filed, and let's call a spade, it wasn't filed by Dan Yorke, it wasn't filed by John Marion, it wasn't filed by Phil West, it wasn't filed by Tim White or Ted Nesi, it was filed by Joe Powers from the Republican Party. It was just an absolute political hit job that was, baseless. I can go on and on with adjectives about what it was, but it's frivolous, an abuse of the process.
And what are you saying? It bothers people to get into the business.
Thank you. So I can't get, and we can't get. That's why the Republicans don't have any legitimate candidates running for office, any statewide office. Nobody wants to run with the banner. Nobody wants to run with these people. And it's hard to get good, talented business people because they came to me and they said, Speaker, you're asking us to run, but look at you. Look what you have to go through. Do you think I want to expose my business and my family to an 8-month investigation? Not to mention thousands and thousands of legal fees that I paid, not to mention a cloud hanging over you for 8 months. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to get involved in government, and that's the sad part. And they seem to have been weaponizing. If you look back historically, this isn't a pattern. And we talked about it briefly in your radio show about the same thing they did with the governor. They're filing these baseless complaints. Sue Shekarchi was on the Lively Experiment saying, I'm disappointed that the Ethics Commission looked into this because I think it's a badge of honor. I want to file ethics complaints. This is what they've become. They're not recruiting candidates. They're not fundraising. Lord knows they can't get signatures for the presidential candidates. So their claim to fame is to file ethics complaints, false ethics complaints against legitimate Democrats or legitimate people doing office. That's the sad state of Rhode Island.
Well, we'll see. Next, there ought to be some development with the governor and this $20 lunch, whether he ordered a salad when it came to meeting with a potential purveyor of business here in the state. We can cover the details on the radio in a later show. When we come back, there's a resolution that was introduced last week that caused a little bit of a ruckus. Stay with us. I only got a couple of minutes for a very complicated issue, but some Republican leadership in the House, not the party, but the House leadership, took you on for not doing what they consider to be a perfunctory exercise, and that is to voice and approve this resolution based on, the personal privilege to introduce it on Israel, written to really chronicle the October 7th attacks and to apologize, actually to offer condolences to the state of Israel. But it was introduced in January, and October to January creates a lot of stuff. Nobody's going to legitimize God knows what happened there. They gave you some heat and said you were weak for not just giving that a flyer. We only have a minute. Tell me why you didn't.
I didn't do it because it's outside of protocol. There are many other representatives who feel strongly on the issue. There are other resolutions that have been introduced, that are being introduced, and Representative Newberry's resolution should not jump the line and go in front. He needs to go to committee like all the other resolutions on the Israel.
They would say other world affairs don't go to committee. It's a one-time thing.
No,
and who would disagree about Israel?
I'll give you that's a legitimate question. Let me give you a legitimate answer.
Yeah.
Every one of those other issues had one resolution. The House spoke as one. On this issue, the House is now speaking at one. Representative Ackerman, your representative from Cumberland, has several issues in several resolutions on this. Why should Representative Newberry
She did sign on to this one.
Yes, and he signed on to hers too. As a matter of fact, she's got almost unanimous approval on hers.
It's complicated.
And listen, it's not a Rhode Island issue. It's an important issue to people, especially who are affected by it. And speaking of that, I was the one at the vigil the day after this event. I didn't see Representative Newberry there.
When will there be hearings on that?
Soon, in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
We're waiting for more resolutions to come in.
Bullish on 24?
Very bullish.
Because?
Because I love Rhode Island. I think Rhode Island's a great place. I don't like people, especially elected officials, tearing it down. And I think we have good people trying to do good things.
Right. Don't be a stranger. Thank you.
Never do. Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Stay with us. Next week on the program, we'll talk to Ken Block, who's written a book about whether the president actually knew or didn't about a stolen election. See you on the radio next week as well.